All right, let's get an instant audit this morning. Jim Frischling is with us, co-founder and president of NewOak Capital. Does this prove everybody has a price or what? Because Cadbury had been resisting this for so long.
Well, I think it certainly shows that an adversarial negotiation can become a friendly negotiation when the price is when one's price is met. And I think that's what Kraft.
You think this is the right price, by the way?
I mean, I certainly think it's a significant step up of I think $2+ billion since from the initial offer, and it certainly puts a lot of pressure on anyone else, including a Hershey that might have been thinking about getting involved. So yes, I think this does get done, and I don't think the shareholders are going to go against the management of Cadbury at this point.
Our discussion yesterday led us to the thought that the winner, whoever wins out and gets Cadbury, is really the loser here, because it would be a substantial jump up in price, and then you have the company less cash rich, or a lot of resources out the door for Kraft. What's your thought on that?
I mean, increased debt and cross-border M&A activity is truly difficult, and I think we're about to find out.
But so is it worth it? Why are they doing it?
I think for Kraft, this is an expansion into far greater international areas than and countries rather than they could get on their own. Very good in the U.S., decent in Europe, but this opens up paths to India, to Asia, to Latin America.
What if you're Hershey? You're left here just operating in the United States. How do they shake out in all this, I wonder? I mean,
I'm a big fan of Hershey, but you're right. They're left as a chocolate seller in the U.S., slow growth population, and a little bit of economic turmoil that we're in. So, but again, I think the increased price by Kraft and the acceptance of Cadbury puts Hershey on the. I think they're going to stand down.
But investors have liked Hershey's over this recession, and if you looked at Kraft, they have 99% of households have some sort of Kraft product in them already. So was this? They did four months to get this deal done. Why do you think there was such urgency at this time, right now, considering the environment, to do this deal?
Actually, I don't think the CEO of Cadbury was mistaken when he kind of claimed that Kraft was trying to pick something up 4 months ago when the world was slightly a different place, or certainly not as good a place we are today, and therefore throughout I don't want to say a low ball, but certainly
they were trying to take advantage.
Did not bid as aggressively as they clearly now see value in the company, and with the celebrity investors on board, Mr. Buffett and Mr. Ackman, it seems they're not paying too much. Otherwise, I think we would hear from both gentlemen.
All right, Jim. Interesting that the British Prime Minister Gordon Brown, with some comments crossing on this as well, with the level of investment he believes in Cadbury to be maintained at the same level. We'll get into his comments a little bit later on. I'm sure Ashley will have more to add on that. Jim, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
I'll have you back later on in the hour. Interesting morning.
And very interesting.
Now, we talk about it in an instant audit. Jim Frischling, co-founder of NewOak Capital, is our guest in studio this morning. What about Citigroup? Because every quarter it seems like, maybe I'm wrong, but we're having the same conversation about Citi, while other banks are moving on to another stage of recovery. When is it going to be Citigroup's turn?
I still think they're being dragged down by loads of inventory. So J.P. Morgan had its issue with bad loans, and again, I think Citi was a little more prevalent in some of the structured products and I guess what's been deemed the toxic assets, and I think that's a problem that still plagues them that did not plague, for example, a J.P. Morgan.
But this is, to Connell's point, we keep on hearing, this is the quarter, this is a season for the kitchen sink. All of the bad loans are going to be out there for us to see, and yet that's not the case. It's repeatedly not the case. So what's the deal?
I mean, part of this is that through some of the programs, a wait-and-see approach has been taken by a number of these banks, including Citi. Now, in their defense, these assets, in my opinion, have appreciated quite substantially. So I still think there's a wild card out there that some of these assets, in fact, are performing better than the expectations. But I will say, despite some of the drags on Citi, if you're remotely bullish on the U.S. economy, then I think they're one of the great large cap bank plays right now.
Really? So you buy you like the stock? It was interesting. Prince Al-Walid was in. He talked to Neil Cavuto, who's obviously a big shareholder in Citigroup, and he seems to be expressing some sort of confidence in the management team. You like the stock? I mean, it's hanging $3 and change there, 342 at the close yesterday.
It's still going to have to work through, I think, a few quarters, so this won't be the last time we're talking about some of these drags. But the fact remains, today seems to be talking about big brands and big franchises. Citi's still one of the great brands and franchises. So,
are you bullish on the U.S. economy?
I am.
Come on.
I am modestly bullish.
Okay, but you own Citigroup.
I do not own Citigroup, but again, as a debt player. But I will say this.
We're trying to understand all this.
We're just trying to bring it all together.
Right.
Yes.
If you were more than modestly bullish, you would own Citigroup.
Yes, and I'm encouraged. I just don't want some of the fiscal stimulus to disappear so quickly, because some of these firms are still on life support.
Well, you're hedging your bets, which in fairness is your job.
That's absolutely correct.
Jim, thank you very much for all that. All right. Some other news this morning. All right, let's bring back Jim Frischling, NewOak Capital, to talk about this. I would assume even market participants pay close attention to this because healthcare is such a big issue. However, it's not clear healthcare is dead just if Brown wins. I mean, how do you view it going in?
Well, first of all, I don't think I've seen so many New Yorkers talk about Massachusetts
Right.
where
We're
the Red Sox were involved. But no, I think, first of all, the Democrats down in Washington already have a B plan if they don't get the election done. But actually, I still think that the Democrats have a pretty good stronghold up in Massachusetts and are the establishment with the union. So while everyone's watching, I think it's going to be close. But I think, not that you asked me to make a prediction, but I'm going to actually.
Well, go ahead and make one anyway.
But I'm going to predict Coakley to edge this out.
You think so? Why?
Again, I think despite the bad weather up in Massachusetts today, I think turnout is going to be significant. This has become a one-issue election.
No, it's all about health care.
And as Martin Luther King, his son, the third, came out, everyone's watching Massachusetts, so expect big numbers. And if you're going to have big turnout, expect the establishment to come out on top.
But it is a larger political story nationally because it has nothing to do with local issues in Massachusetts and everything to do with national issues and a referendum to some degree on the Obama administration and the first year in office. So not a great sign for Democrats, certainly leading into the midterms, even if it's close, more or less. If Coakley loses, that's if you lose Massachusetts, this is Ted Kennedy's seat in Massachusetts. You lose that. I mean, I think that's very correct, and both are running on that one issue. Brown is the 41st vote, and the one to be the meaningful one against, and Coakley is the 60th. Maybe that's the investment angle there, is that you're thinking the Democrats could lose a number of seats, maybe more than expected in the midterms, if this one goes this way, no?
I certainly think it's a sign of President Obama's popularity is certainly shifted, but yeah. That's an obvious statement. But again, I still think, despite the closeness of this race, I think it's going to. I still think it goes Democrat.
In general, we've been talking a lot about the intersection between Wall Street and Washington. I mean, it's been a theme for the last year, more than a year. As someone that plays in the field that you play in, debt, how do you take that into your strategy? As Connell mentions, we know we have the midterm elections coming up. Does that change anything in your game plan, or is that just not? It's kind of like a side play?
No, it is very meaningful. If I think about some of the lackluster trading that goes on in the residential housing markets, for example, that is a political, far more political market than, let's say, the commercial real estate market, which is far more institutional, and therefore you don't see people coming out arguing to save ma and pa. So when you start thinking about debt opportunities in the debt markets, I think you try to look for the markets where potentially the government would, I won't say stay out, but where the rules are set.
Where is that right now, then? Where are you? Is it the commercial side?
Exactly. So we're focusing far more on the commercial side, where we feel there's more orderly nature to that market as opposed to the residential side, which again is still a political lightning rod. And there are many investors who don't want to get involved and be seen potentially as foreclosing on families and seizing or being vultures in a distressed market. On the commercial side, you don't hear those types of concerns. So Washington does play a big role in how people are allocating funds and which markets they're currently staying out of.
I wouldn't have necessarily thought of that right off the top of my head, but that's a very interesting angle. What about the whole gridlock is good thing that was the saying of the 90s when President Clinton was in office and the Republicans were in control of Congress? Is that true? As an investor, would you rather see more of a balance in the way power is split up in Washington, or does that not really matter to you?
That's a very good question. I will say I'm going to go right now with it doesn't really
doesn't affect you as much as some people say.
It doesn't affect as much. Although I will say that the manner in which the country is divided over, for example, just this one issue, and no, it's certainly. Sorry, it's something we're all watching. I'll leave it at that.
That's going to be a big one tonight. And Neil's got the coverage, right? Neil Cavuto have the
You're not a Red
coverage
Sox fan,
Fox
are you?
Business.
I'm a Yankee fan.
Okay.
I really am a Yankee fan.
That was a disclaimer that maybe we should have gone out there at the beginning of the conversation.
Yeah, that's right. But we missed that follow-up. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you for asking, Jim.
All right, good enough.